Welcome everybody to this World Satsanga held on Saturday the 24th of November 2018 in conjunction with Kevin Moore and The Moore Show. And again, many thanks to Kevin for all the work he's doing in spreading the word, spreading the truth and exposing what appears to be mistruths as well in terms of understanding what the greater reality is. Last time I spoke to Kevin, by the way, he was still in the States doing the work on these latest set of documentaries. So keep going, Kevin, you're doing a great job. Okay, so let's go to the agenda for this month's Satsanga. First of all, there's a short talk by myself on how the frequencies hide what is not visible on the Earth and the physical universe. And then we've got what's supposed to be 30 minutes of questions, but might end up being more like an hour. There's a lot of questions there, so and a lot of good questions as well, which are specifically aimed at understanding who and what we are, and understanding more about our greater reality. And then the end of meditation is a meditation to help us make the right decisions in life. This is particularly important when we're faced with the dilemma of going one way versus another. Having choice or choices to make when we move forwards. Okay, so the first part, how do the frequencies hide what's not visible on the Earth and physical universe? Well, if you think of it in terms of layers, in computer-aided design, when we build something or we design something like a house or a car or an airplane or a piece of furniture or a piece of electronics like a computer, we put things on different levels. And we can either see all the levels together, which gives us quite a solid 3D image of what we're trying to design, or we can turn off certain levels or layers and only see certain aspects of that design, such as with a motor car, it would be we can see the whole car, or we can just see the chassis or the body in white, or we can just see the electrical wiring harness or loom as we used to call it, or we can just see the powertrain, or we can just see the suspension, or we can just see the fuel system, or we can just see the trim and hardware. And a similar thing for a house, you can see basically the bricks, or you can see the woodwork inside, or you can see the central heating system, whichever system that's being used, and you can see the electrical system as well. So it's really about layers and layering and how and switching these things on and off. So if you use that as an example, and then think of it in a slightly different way, is the layers being appropriate to a certain frequency level, then you can see that if you're only able to switch on certain frequency levels, and in terms of the human eye, that will be the first three frequency levels. Scientific mankind calls them 3 dimensions, but my understanding is that dimensions are a much higher piece of structure than what is purported to be dimensions. We actually live in a frequential state within a dimension. Then you only see or experience what's in those 3 dimensions. Those 3 frequencies. Getting dimensions myself now. So in essence, we only see what is gross physical. Now, when we work on ourselves and we try to experience more of our reality, more of our incarnate reality, we can raise our frequencies higher. Now, we do this via meditation, being of service to others, or other things, doing various different workshops that are out there, including my own Traversing the Frequencies workshops. And when we do this, we raise our frequencies. And as we raise our frequencies, we give ourselves the ability to access other levels or other layers, so to speak, of the physical universe. Now, for those of you who remember the information that's part of the History of God and the Beyond the Source books, you'll understand, and of course the Origin Speaks, you'll understand that the physical universe is the only universe that uses 12 frequencies to create it. And that's because they are all low frequencies. And so above the 12th frequency, a particular frequency itself will and does have the capability of housing a self-contained simultaneous universe in its own right. But the physical universe, which is within the first full dimension, everything else is in other dimensions, needs all of those frequencies associated with it. And so basically we have a condition where when we're incarnating, we're only exposed to those levels. Now, if we're incarnating into a different frequency, let's for instance, we didn't incarnate on Earth, we incarnated in a different galaxy within the physical universe, and we subsequently incarnated in a different frequency within our galaxy, we would be able to see and observe, let's say it's the 5th frequency, we would be able to see and observe everything in the 5th frequency and the 4th frequency and the 3rd frequency and below. And so the higher the frequency you are, you can see more of the content associated with what's on the Earth, for instance, or other planets or systems or galaxies that are based upon the 3rd and 4th frequencies from the 5th frequency. But you can't see it in the 6th. You can't see the 6th, you can't see the 7th, you can't see the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th or 12th. This is because we have a demarcation between these frequencies. Now, in some cases we don't have a demarcation. In some cases a locally high frequency or area within a lower frequency can be in contact with a locally low frequency within a higher frequency, and that's how sometimes we get this merging or where frequencies collide, so to speak, and we can move through different frequencies, higher and lower frequencies, by using this natural sort of phenomena which is created by us as we work with that particular frequency. Or we can use some sort of mechanical means or higher energetic function to be able to create the ability to jump between frequencies. This is only available to us, by the way, if we incarnate at frequencies quite high, actually, around about the 4th and 5th above us. You start to use mechanical means, but when you start to get into the 8th, 9th, 10th, etc. and above, you start to use more spiritual or energetic methods of doing things using intention. But in essence, what we have is the ability to see those layers or levels or frequencies and the content associated with those frequencies in the physical universe that you're on or incarnate on or into and below, but not those above, because it's a different condition. We are able to see that which is below us or around us, but not above us, unless we work on ourselves. It's a universal law. So basically, everything that's on the Earth now, that we see now on the Earth and the physical universe, from our perspective, is within the gross physical frequencies, the first 3 frequencies, and we can see these with our physical eyes, and we know that our physical eyes are limited. They have a visual range of between 400 and 700 nanometers, which is really small. And we also know that there are other things that can occur at slightly higher frequencies or slightly lower frequencies. So we have the infrared and the ultraviolet, and we know that we can transmit things and perceive things by having our machines working sort of around those areas, so we can see through things by using X-rays, different versions of radiation being used. And we can also transmit on microwaves or ultra high frequency rays or very high frequency radio waves. So we know that things do exist above our visual range, but we have to use mechanical means to be able to access those. But all of these are still within the first 3 frequencies. They're not quite in the 4th frequency. So if there are things within the third frequencies that we can't see because they're slightly higher than the 3rd frequency, they're not into the 4th, then it stands to reason that there are things that are in the 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th up to the 12th that we can't see. And so it's about positioning of frequencies. Once we can position ourselves in different frequencies, we can access everything that's in a particular frequency that we put ourselves in. If we're on the 12th frequency, we see everything that's in the physical universe. And although right now when we look at the physical universe with the Hubble telescope, for instance, or other telescopes, that can see long distances or close distances, we start to see lots of blackness in between sort of bright areas that we attribute to being galaxies. And there's billions of galaxies within the first 3 frequencies associated with the physical universe, and there's even more associated with the 4th and 5th and 6th, etc., etc., etc. So although we see mostly nothingness in between these little bright lights, which are galaxies, and nothingness in between the little bright lights, which are solar systems or suns and planets, when we go up the frequencies, we start to see these gaps, these darkness, if you want to call it that, filled in. So the higher the frequencies we go, the more content we see, not only in our own planet, because there's lots of content on this particular planet, the Earth. It's a pan-frequential body. It exists on all 12 frequencies, and so therefore there are things here happening beings, entities, constructs that they use to experience and stay here, that are only available on those different frequency levels, or on those frequency levels and below, for instance. So the higher up the frequencies we go, we see more content. And so when we get to the 12th frequency, this universe that we see, it's mostly black with the odd little bright dot of a galaxy, ends up being actually all white, as an example, with very little black spots in between, if any at all. And so it is simply about accessing higher frequencies. Think of it as well a little bit like using your radio tuner, okay? When you select a radio station. Now with digital radio it's difficult to understand it because we select a program, we select a station. But in the old days of frequency modulation or amplitude modulation, AM and FM, we basically selected a frequency. And as we move from one frequency to another, you moved out of the ability to receive one radio station to a higher frequency where you'd receive another radio station. And you receive these radio stations in isolation, and that's exactly the same way as the frequencies in the greater reality work as well. The higher up the frequencies you go, you can access different things, but whereas with the radio system, you can't access those stations below you because you're focused on one particular frequency, and therefore the radio station on a higher frequency. Within the multiversal environment, and certainly the physical universal environment, when you're a higher frequency, you can access everything below you as well. Okay, so that's how the frequencies hide what's not visible. It's simply a case of positioning frequentially. And although we have an example with radio, for instance, and we have the example with the computer-aided design, it's actually a case of not separating things out, but adding things on. So as we go up the frequencies, we add our ability to see things at our level and below, but not above. Okay, so we don't go up to the 5th frequency and only see what's in the 5th frequency. We can, if we want to, only select what's in the 5th frequency, for instance, but we can do, but we don't tend to. We tend to sort of observe what's in the 5th frequency, but we can observe everything that's on the 5th, 4th and 3rd. Sometimes when we get up the higher frequencies, we can separate ourselves out and experience only what's on those levels. Certainly in the 4th frequency, it's very much a case of you can see what's on the 4th frequency and what's here, and to some extent the 5th. When you get to the 6th, the entities there would tend to focus on the 6th only, and then at will we'll be able to access that's on the 4th, well, the 5th and the 4th and the 3rd as well. Okay, and that's that particular lecture on how the frequencies hide what's not visible on the Earth and the physical universe. Now we've got a lot of questions actually, which I want to go through. There's probably around, quite possibly 15 or 16 questions or more actually. So we'll move on quite quickly. And the first question is from FN, and there's 10 questions from FN, so that's the first large chunk. And the first question is relevant to Tom Campbell. Tom Campbell's the author of My Big Toe, and the question is that Tom Campbell says that mediums and other individuals who access dead people do not really access dead people. They only access the programming for that dead person, because the program has all the information about our, example, Bob or Brian or Mary, and can send info to mediums to assist or guide others through mediums. Does this depict mediums accessing correctly? Please explain. Well, basically, it's another way of saying that the dead person, or should we say the personality associated with the dead person, that personality that's created through incarnation, that's associated with the sentience that's projected from the true energetic self, is in essence the true energetic self, or a small part of it. So when Tom says we only access the programming, if you substitute the word programming for sentience, and then you understand that it's the sentience associated with that part of the true energetic self which has been separated out to become incarnate, then it's the same thing. And also, if you think of it in terms of and I think I'm going to have to add on the presentation on who we are and how we incarnate to this particular lecture, because that explains a bit more about it. But basically, as we become disincarnate, we have a number of different, probably about 6 I believe, Might be 7, I can't remember. Different ways in which we re-commune with our true energetic self. And one of those, in fact, there's a couple of those, which means we maintain our individuality, but we either stay projected from the true energetic self, or we enter a number of different forms of communion, where the sentience is distributed or diffuse within the overall body of sentient energies that is the true energetic self. And so if you get to the point where Bob, in this example, has gone into full communion with the true energetic self, the true energetic self, to enable the medium to be able to contact the sentience that was Bob, would need to reconstruct that sentience in an individualized sense, temporarily, to allow that medium to access that which was Bob. Or in fact, the true energetic self itself could access that which was done by that smaller version of its sentience, that smaller aspect of sentience whilst incarnate, to answer the questions on behalf of itself, itself being, allowing a smaller part of itself to become Bob as well. So sometimes mediums do access the true energetic self. So with the Tom Campbell example, try to substitute the words that are used. Try to substitute his description of it by saying programming to sentience, and a smaller aspect of sentience which is separated out. Okay, right, the next question here, and I don't see where the indication of where it came from was, but basically let's start with the full part of the question. The question is, you wrote that, simply put, when an aspect is connected to the true energetic self in this way, this must be in a form of communion, for instance, or otherwise, it has access to all the information that this true energetic self has whilst in the communion with the source. Are we able to elevate ourselves as an incarnated aspect in this physical universe and connect to the true energetic self at a higher level of frequential state and access all the information available? Yes, we can, but it's very hard, because we are totally programmed, unfortunately, from birth to believing or even feeling that we know that the physical universe is all there is. And so we have to completely divorce ourselves or detach ourselves from this feeling. Meditate, get to the point where we actually do manage to project our consciousness out of the body. Lower form of that is astral travel. Higher form is moving beyond that and traversing the different frequencies. And so then we can access the communication between us, other examples of aspects projected from our true energetic self, and our true energetic self itself, and of course the source. So it's really about working hard on ourselves, and the biggest enemy we have is mind chatter. So we have to really work very hard beyond that. Some people take 30-40 years, some people can do it in 4 months. It just depends upon how focused they are. The rest of this question is, you wrote that you access this information because you are Om, but that appears to be not the norm. How do we accomplish the same? Well, anybody who's dedicated can do it. I mean, there's clearly some of us are able to access it quite quickly. I actually took quite a long time, although relatively speaking, compared to somebody who's taking 30 years, mine was quick. But it needs to be dedicated information. Blank mind, accept everything but question everything. Dedication to understanding the information and working forwards, and having regular meditations or practice on focusing and connecting with your true energetic self or source. Anybody can do it, because we're all connected to a true energetic self. Anybody can do it because all of our true energetic selves are a smaller aspect of source. So in essence, we're all source. So anybody can do it. It just needs focus and the ability to detach from this particular physical aspect of what the source is in its multiversal environment. So question 3, is the author Tom Campbell like you? He seems to give similar information in a more scientific and mechanical way. Can I elaborate? In effect, Tom has found a way to link into the knowledge that's out there within the source, that's accrued by other projected aspects on behalf of their true energetic selves, which is accrued on behalf of the source, in his own way. And because of his training and his information, he's presenting it in that way. And this is important because really we all learn in different ways. We know this because when we go to college or school or university, some teachers ring true, the way they teach rings true with us, and we get on well, we can understand the information easy, and some teachers don't teach us in the way we would learn, and therefore we struggle to get an understanding of the knowledge there. So it's in essence, he's not like me in terms of my heritage, but he's like me in terms of his ability to latch onto or to log into the information and present it in a way relevant to his own physical training. And I think that answers that question. Okay. Next question, what does this mean? As you're aware, there are various forms of free will that include various forms of collectivity as part of its functionality. That's in the Kindle page 2595. In effect, there are different forms of free will. There's different forms of collective free will. Now, totally individualized free will is what we're experiencing now. But there's other forms of free will that are not totally collective, but are assigned to a collective, where one example of almost total free will is where you have individualized free will, but you're governed upon how your actions and responses affect the rest of the collective. So you would naturally have laws within you that said, okay, if I do this, this is going to affect other individuals in this way, so therefore maybe I'll do it in a different way where it doesn't affect them too much. And that's what the sort of the higher end of sort of free will within the collective is. Other levels of free will would be, for instance, you're able to work in a free will way in a very limited context that allows you to do the work you need to do on behalf of the collective, but only in the way that is effective for the collective. And that means that you may, for instance, if you're using the example of the body, human body, if you're a liver cell, you can do everything you want to do as a liver cell, but nothing more. That's the sort of idea. Whereas if you are another cell, for instance, like a brain cell, you have the ability to do everything you can do with it as a brain cell, but nothing more. Whereas if you have other free will, a different level of free will, like for instance as a cancer, you can create yourself to be something like a liver cell, but not perform like a liver cell quite, but have that performance to be good enough to confuse the liver and the liver cells and the white corpuscles and the body's immune system, to make you thinking that you're a liver cell, but you're not. So that's a little bit of free will that's just outside of the total collective condition. So there's different types of free will, and I can't remember which book this is in. Probably the Origin Speaks and probably even in the And Dialogues. But it's worthwhile reading because free will is a very interesting subject, and the ways in which we incarnate in various different parts of the physical universe also dictate what level of will we have, so to speak. Okay. Next question, number 5, is you wrote that not all aspects that are projected away from the main body of the true energetic self, energies have free will. So how could an aspect that is projected in this earth, physical life, be without free will? Right. What that means is that basically it's an aspect that's projected away from the main body of the true energetic self, may incarnate in a different location within the physical universe, a different frequency, and obviously a different sort of planetary or galactic location, and they would not have free will. There are also aspects, of course, that don't have total free will, and those are the animal aspects that are projected down from the true energetic selves that don't have the same quality of sentience that our particular true energetic selves do. So they don't have the same level of free will that we do, so to speak. So and sometimes they don't have free will at all. And sometimes we have quite a lot actually, entities of a higher frequency who've incarnated at a higher frequency that are on the earth that we can't see because they're a different frequency, that also have no free will at all. They're part of a collective. Some of those beings or entities we've met, actually. I keep saying being an entity, but actually they're different things. And those of you who remember the lecture on what's the difference between a being and an entity will understand that one's based upon being created by Source or a function of Source, such as a true energetic self, whereas the other one is based upon the the sort of natural sort of Darwinian evolution of energies that group together and collect together, and eventually have this desire to collect together and sacrifice that whatever individuality they had, i.e. as an individual energy, to become part of a collective to create a bigger entity. Okay. Well, I hope that answers that particular question. Next, question 6 is, what does this quotation mean? For example, the human vehicle is not only used on Earth. As you can see from the diversity of the human race, it is not possible for so many variants to come to the same planet, or come from the same planet. Each of them has been used to seed the planet with a variant of the human form that was in harmony with the changes of the frequencies and the environmental conditions as they, the incarnate vehicles, descended the frequencies. That's from page 3051 in Kindle. Well, basically, there are other locations within this particular galaxy and other galaxies that are similar, so to speak, and where the general human form operates well in. And so there have been times when those entities who were working with the opportunity to use individualized free will as an evolutionary accelerant on this particular planet recognize that rather than redesigning the vehicle, they would be better off using an existing humanoid type of vehicle that existed on other planets or galaxies that were of a slightly lower frequency. And so those bodies were appropriated or transplanted onto the Earth in preference to creating a new lower frequency vehicle, one that was able to cope with the drop in frequencies. And so there's been a number of different superseding humanoid bodies that have been transplanted on Earth to, if you want to call this, make a shortcut in the ability to have to redesign a body that's capable of working in lower frequencies. Now, some of these vehicles obviously were higher frequency than where we are now. So for instance, Afro-Caribbeans or the Asians or the Indians, for instance, they may have been a higher frequency. And then when you moved in a lower frequency, those bodies would have been struggling to work here. So in general, a lot of these vehicles started to misfunction or malfunction at these different frequency levels. But we did have a form of Darwinian evolution. And so some of these bodies did in fact adapt over time or over event space to the lower frequencies. And that's why we do have different vehicle types, different skin colors, different statures, so to speak, slightly different genomes associated with those different body types that were transplanted on the Earth at different frequential levels, and they've managed to survive. And this is why we've still got the plethora of different bodies. And also sometimes we do have bodies that are the third frequency level that have been transplanted here as well. And this is where we are with what we've got now. So there are bodies that are in between, so to speak, some of the major genomes, and they're not specifically hybrids or mixed race marriage productions, for instance. They are simply that they have been transplanted from a different planet, but is very, very close to the Earth. But when these incarnates have incarnated into those bodies, they wouldn't have had free will. The body isn't the vehicle that has free will; it's the sentience that has the free will. That's worth noting. So, based upon this, next question is: based upon what I read, it seems that ancestral karma makes no sense and it cannot exist. Is this a correct statement? Yes. Basically, ancestral karma is suggesting that we have taken on board karma from a family member. Well, we can do that if we wanted to assist a particular aspect of a particular trinetic self and remove that karma. By acting out that karma for them or experiencing different things that negates that karma. But in general, we don't. In general, the karma or the addictions to, or the needs to go over different functions of existence and create a better response to those different interactive conditions or environmental conditions we find ourselves in a more effective and efficient way. So it's generally what we've accrued and not what another entity's accrued that we're working with. Okay, there are some brave souls who do come down and help other aspects out if they've got a lot of karma, by taking on board some of their karma for them. And it may well be that by some strange coincidence, that particular aspect was part of the same family line. I mean, bear in mind that family line and where the aspect comes from in terms of its true energetic self are not generally linked. Sometimes you get the odd condition where there's two aspects in the same family from the same true energetic self, but that's extremely rare and not at all common. And so generally it's associated with the individual's aspect or soul. Okay. Next question. You said that master guides work with 12 guides and their wards and also their own 12 wards. Is that correct? Yeah, absolutely. Master guides are, I mean, this is a humanization of the words, really. I mean, clearly the word master is something which we use to show a demarcation in a level of function and responsibility associated with these entities that are in service to us by helping us navigate through incarnate existence to accelerate the accrual of evolution on behalf of our true energetic selves and of course Source and ultimately Origin. So let me read the rest of the question. Yes, if so, why master guides also get wards when they can only guide the guides? Well, they do get. Sometimes master guides are nearly achieve this level of responsibility, so they're still looking after their wards. A ward is an entity or an aspect that is incarnate, and sometimes they take on board the governance of a ward who has a very important thing to do, and so therefore it needs to have a master, a master guide or somebody or a guide who has lots and lots and lots of experience and ability as well to be able to navigate or help that particular aspect or soul navigate through the important levels of responsibility and function it's got to do in this particular incarnation. And that's answered the next part of the question. What sort of wards do master guides manage? Usually those aspects that have got a lot of important responsibilities to go through and activate through, and sometimes it can be a very, very difficult life they have to go through. These so-called rags to riches, not specifically rags to riches financially, but rags to riches in terms of their intelligence or their ability to change the lives of others and change the directions of others as well. Okay, so that's a very important to individuals usually. Next part of this is, I understand aspects may require, at a particular point in this incarnation. Oh, I'll start again. Why do some aspects have a number of helpers? I understand aspects may require that at a particular point in this incarnation. So basically, why does an incarnate of 30 or 6 do more helpers? And guides signify a specific task or a juncture for an incarnate. Is an aspect incompetent or inexperienced to have multiple guides or lots more helpers basically? Or is the aspect too experienced and need multiple guides to achieve certain goals? Yeah, sometimes a multiple guide condition is only when you've got one guide handing over to another guide. For instance, if there's going to be an evolutionary jump in frequencies. But the number of helpers, for instance, is specific to the complexity of the incarnate's life plan. How many individuals they need to interact with, in what environments, and at what junctures within event space. And sometimes they need a lot, and sometimes they need only a few. And in real terms, there's no correlation either between the complexity, overall complexity, and the number of helpers. So if you think of it in terms of, well, this person's got a complicated life plan, they may only need to have 6 helpers. Whereas this person's got a very simple life plan, this person's got 30 helpers. But you can have somebody with a simple life plan that's got 6 helpers, and somebody with a complicated life plan that's got 30 helpers. And it's to do with how they want to maintain that simplicity or that complexity. and how they're moving from one point to another point to interface with others who are part of that life plan. If you think about it, sometimes somebody has to have a really simple incarnation and be kept away from the possibility of gaining karma, because they're getting close to jumping from one frequency to another. They're getting close to having an evolutionary jump, or even moving away from the need to incarnate. So these helpers, and maybe even with two guides, are being kept really close to the goalposts, narrow goalposts associated with the glide path that is their life plan, so that they don't stray, so they only do what they need to do, and that's it. And that's why they might have a lot. Otherwise, it could be that they've not particularly got to the juncture where they're jumping a frequency, but the life plan is simple, and so they don't need a lot of individuals. So there's no correlation in terms of numbers of helpers or more than one guide versus the complexity or simplicity of the life plan. Okay, last question, question 10. You also said the more advanced an entity is, the more evolutionary content it can accrue, and therefore the more it can donate it to those who help it accrue evolutionary content, such as guides and helpers. Is this a reason why one expect could have a large number of guides and helpers? That's in Kindle page 3789. No, basically there is no correlation between the number of guides and helpers and the ability for a particular entity to accrue more evolutionary content than another. Although the guide and the helpers that are associated with that particular entity will benefit. Now, guides and helpers aren't part of the evolutionary cycle, so they don't accrue evolution themselves per se by the work they do, but they can accrue evolution by the grateful response of a particular entity giving them evolution, so to speak. So it's not like an evolutionary tax, for instance, or paying for the service, saying, "Oh, thank you for helping me, here's some evolution." It's simply a case of, well, I've accrued a lot of evolution here, and maybe it's more than I expected, so you can have some as well. And this happens a lot. And so basically the guides and helpers, they evolve sometimes faster as a function of helping multiple wards than the actual wards themselves would do on behalf of their true energetic self. Okay, so I hope that answers that question. Thank you very much, FN, for answering those questions, for asking those questions to me. Okay, next one's from EM, and it's another question about karma, and it's read from the book Avoiding Karma. And the comments is here: the more my consciousness expands in this human experience, and it is already expanded, the more I'm told there is not really any karma, there is no resolving of anything. Karma has so many connotations, good or bad. If this happens to you, then this or that has to happen to balance you out. And this goes on and on. Even universal situations, in brackets karma, are just an unfolding of consciousness, and it is all perfect in its experiences. The I that is me is here to experience and manifest whatever it wants, and it is all beautiful, magnificent and magical. It leaves no residue behind that needs to be resolved, because it is all love being played out in whatever form it takes. With this awareness, I no longer see karma, only love acting out its many forms. That is a higher level function. In essence, when you start to get to that position, the attractivity, the addiction, so to speak, of that which happens in and around us whilst we're incarnate disappears. And we start to realize that everything is done by ourselves to try to evolve. And even when we're doing things that other people think are bad, for instance, or we see other people doing bad things, we start to see these individuals and think, well, they're doing their best to experience, learn and evolve whilst being incarnate. And so we look beyond the actions from a human perspective, and we see it in a completely different way. We see it as being a function of the overall experience of the aspects of the true energetic self, source and origin. And so we do then work in a completely different condition of love, and it's a much higher state of beingness than human love is. It's a level of complete understanding. And when we understand totally and we work in this level of understanding, the addiction or the attraction to low frequency thoughts, behaviors and actions disappears. We interact with others in a really efficient and perfect way. We experience experiences in an efficient and perfect way, and we don't get addicted to or attracted to anything. Once we've achieved this, we then move beyond the need to incarnate because we've mastered it. And then we continue to have our evolutionary progression in the energetic, without any need to incarnate. One or two of us do come back once in a while, or feel the need to, or sometimes say we're going to help out in a way which is benign, but nevertheless directional. But in general, once we've got to the point where we don't need to incarnate, we don't. Okay, good question, thank you. This is from MS, and it said, hi. This is a question about abortion. It says, so how does abortion sit with the source? How does that affect the woman's life plan, their journey? Do some women choose to experience that in their life, or is it the choice of the baby's or aspect or shard? Is it counted as karma? Again, you have to look at a higher perspective. It's about experience. The individual mother might want to experience the gestation of another form within it, another incarnate vehicle within it for a certain period of time, and then no longer want to experience that as part of its incarnation. And similarly, an entity may wish to be associated with such a function of being part of the gestation of an incarnate vehicle up to a certain point, and then detach from it. So it's not a condition of, shall we say, is it going to affect us from a karmic perspective? It's usually part of a plan, usually part of an experiential plan, that both the aspect associated with being the mother, and potentially the father, and potentially the child in its embryonic state wanted to experience in different ways. They all want to experience different aspects of that and then move on. We don't all want to experience a whole life. We don't want to experience being born, but we sometimes want to experience the condition of connectivity with that which could be born, for instance. Okay, so we got some, various different things here which are sometimes abhorrent to the human condition, but actually very benign to us when we're energetic. Next question. This is from MO, and this is another wonderful person who is working on translating one of the books, The History of God, into Japanese. So thank you very much. And there's a couple of questions here, and one's from an individual who's working with MO. It's a hi again. One of my friends who proofread the translated chapter of The History of God asked me to ask you this question. Okay, and the question is: I've heard that this is a holographic universe and created based upon mathematics. If so, does prime numbers have a pattern, or is it completely at random? And also, how do other alien races with higher technologies use prime numbers? The physical universe is part of the multiversal environment, as we know, and so it is based upon a structure, and that structure is a function of source. And source has a structure that's a function of the origin. And so, with it being omnipresent, you could use the word holographic to describe it, because holographic is not two-dimensional, it's sort of three-dimensional, from a physical descriptor, not a frequential or an environmental condition. So I'm not using the word dimension here to describe an environment. It's a state of solidness, so to speak. Okay, so holographic means within and without, everywhere. Okay, so these things can be described a number of different ways, and mathematics is one small and actually inaccurate, but nevertheless one way that is used by a number of different civilizations that are within the gross physical frequencies to describe it. mathematics is just one way of describing things. It's inaccurate, but it's one of the purer ways. So it's one of the more pure, inaccurate ways, so to speak. So maths can go a certain way, and then that's it. It fails to go any further. And prime numbers are sort of a function of mathematics that are sort of recurring and pure, so to speak. The function of 12 within, and those numbers which can be divisible within the 12, such as 1, 6, 2, 3 and 4, and 12 itself, are all parts of that 12. And this number 12 is part of the structure, function of the structure of the origin, source, true energetic selves, and ourselves as well. And so sometimes we have to use some functions of maths associated with our structure to create that which we need to create. And sometimes the mathematics explains it, and sometimes it doesn't. So sometimes these numbers are used as part of a standard function of understanding, and sometimes the mathematics associated with it is accurate, and sometimes it's inaccurate. Okay, so and also, how do other alien races with higher technology use prime numbers? Well, they would use other alien races with higher technologies would move beyond these things. They would go into a different state of understanding of the structure associated with the environment that they're in, that frequency that is part of the physical universe that they're incarnate into, to be able to create that which is there. Once you start to move with working with frequencies and energies to create things, rather than basic manufacturing processes of cutting something or generating something, you start to use different functions above that which we would think about as being a solid basic foundation of a particular level of understanding, in this instance maths. Okay. Next part of this question is from the MO himself. The man asked this question is a cook, but we are very interested in physics. Great. And he would be delighted to know the answer. Well, I hope this answers the question. And it's great that you're a cook and that you are interested in physics as well, metaphysics. Metaphysics is that which is beyond physical physics. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you for your interest, and thank you for helping to spread more levels of deeper understanding. You don't have to be an engineer or a scientist to want to understand and to understand the greater reality. Okay. Next question is from MO himself. Okay, congratulations on signing the contract with Ozark. Thank you on the curators, and they're saying I'm very excited to know that the curators is going to be published next year. It feels really long until the book is available for us. Unfortunately, this is almost a standard publishing time with my publisher. Bigger publishers, huge publishers can truncate that time or make it smaller, but in general there's about a 9-month time period between the acceptance of a book and it being on the shelves. So the excitement is there. Thank you very much. So what would you share that made you feel most excited to find out, and why while you were channeling information for this book is a teaser? Okay, so basically what was the most important thing that came out of this particular book? I was amazed at the number of individual entities that had the ability to work with the different forms of event space and the different realities. That was the thing that I found most exciting, and actually most concerning, because I was really starting to wonder whether I was going in circles. But actually, when you look at it, and I don't even think I'm scraping the surface with the information in the book in the slightest. But if you look at the different functions of event space and how it can change and how it's changed around us, and the fact that it's fluid, and that we change it, and our guides and helpers change it, and there are other entities that aren't, that are also of service, but they're maintaining the structure of the multiversal environment, and they also change it to affect more efficient interactions with the content of the multiverse and the individual entities that are incarnate or disincarnate within the multiversal environments can experience, learn and evolve from it, is amazing. And it's not, so you start to think to yourself, well, actually, if everything is manipulated in such a way, is there such a thing as free will? And you start to realise that free will is sort of limited in all sorts of different ways. But we would need to understand that, as we experience something from our individual linear way, other aspects of us are experiencing these different experiences in different ways, in different realities, different event spaces, in slightly different ways. So then you start to understand that some of these things need to merge together, some need to split out, some need to form different versions of event spaces, and some need to be terminated. And so this is what some of these curators do. And I was amazed to find out the number of different versions of event space, number of different versions of reality, or versions of realities or environments, and the different entities that are able to manipulate these things, or govern these things, or maintain these things. That was the most amazing thing for me, so thank you. Okay, last question for us all. And I'm pleased that we're moving through quite fast, actually, so I'm a bit pleased. This is from US, the lady who transcribes the World Satsanga for us. And it's, hi Guy, here's a question that addresses many serious health issues for which your guidance as a healer is needed. Okay, I'll do my best. Question: it's becoming increasingly clear that chronic inflammation is the root cause of many illnesses, including heart disease, many cancers, and the newly emerging epidemic of Alzheimer's disease. We know that a poor diet, lack of exercise, stress, genetic predisposition, and exposure to toxins can all contribute to chronic inflammation. We can make some lifestyle changes, e.g. Anti-inflammatory diets, supplements, fasting, regular exercise, stress relief, adequate sleep, etc., to improve things physically. But more importantly, what could we do from the energetic perspective? Would you please give us more guidance and meditation to deal with this multifactorial condition such as Alzheimer's disease, which is not a single disease or one size fits all. It's more like a roof within 36 holes that are being plugged one hole at a time. So plugging one hole is not enough. How can we prevent or reduce its expression using energy healing, even if it's part of our life plan, or at least in some parallel lives? In some instances, Alzheimer's disease, whether it's related to things like dementia or Parkinson's related dementia, and the vast plethora of different versions that move off the beaten track, can be associated with one's life plan, one's ability, one's desire to experience different levels of function, of sentient function, or conscious function as well. And also sometimes it can be associated with the way in which the aspect or soul is detaching itself from the incarnation whilst still maintaining some level of connectivity with the incarnation. So you do get souls that start to reduce their sentience, the connectivity of the sentience to their incarnate vehicle gradually, and that shows up in the ability for that body to appear to function properly with this from a consciousness perspective. I'm not going to say from an animated perspective, because they can still animate the body, but it's from a conscious perspective, like logging into different experiences that have been achieved previous, either instantaneously, like minutes ago or years ago. So it can be attributed to the detachment of the soul gradually, before finally allowing the body to demise and moving back into the energetic. But also there is a lot of it to do with the lifestyle, not specifically associated with psychological issues, although psychological issues associated with stress can create levels of what we call dementia or loss of memory. That's basically due to just trying to do too much stuff. We can all experience that, and so we have to write things down, which is good practice actually. But the other side of it is the foods we're having. Now, I've said this many times. If you look back about 40 years on some of the television sitcoms, you see, or even the films, a lot of the actors are thin. Why are they thin? They're thin because they're eating whole food. They're eating food which they've bought from a greengrocer, from a butcher, from a fruiterer, okay, and it hasn't been treated with pesticides. It hasn't been preserved. It hasn't been pre-prepared. It is something we've made ourselves. We've made apple pie, we've made steak and kidney pie, we've made chicken pie, we've made leek and Stilton pies. We've made various different things, that are based upon us taking the raw ingredients ourselves and doing it. When we start to get prepared foods from supermarkets, where you've got pre-prepared pies, meals, all these different things, the preservatives that are in them and the fat content that's in them is ultimately a level of poison. It creates disharmony within the body, and the fats associated with them are more easily absorbed. They're a bit addictive to the body, so it absorbs those fats faster than it absorbs natural fats. And those natural fats are what we use as part of the physical function of allowing the brain to act as a cognitive vehicle for us, to help to pass on the understanding of that which is the sentience from the aspect that sits in the soul seat, what we sometimes call the core star, in Barbara Brennan terms, to being accessed and functioned through the communicative core of the body, which is called the brain. And so we start to lose that ability. And so the good fats are ignored in favour of these bad fats, basically. And so and this is because of the preservatives that are there. And when we exercise, the body naturally uses the good fats to exercise, but leaves bad fats there. So we have more difficulty in losing fat as well. And all these fats are used, or cholesterol, different types of cholesterols are used by the brain on a higher level to assist in the connectivity between the sentience associated with the human form. And so we also get this inability to connect from a physical perspective to an energetic perspective as a function of it, because it's dysfunctional. It's the energies associated with it are not in harmony with us. And so these pre-preserved foods that we're eating, and also a predominance in the taking of supplements, for instance, or medication, for instance, is also creates a disharmony as well energetically, and results in a lack of sentient functionality, consciousness, if we want to call it, from a physical perspective. So really, we have to start to go back to basics food-wise. Really getting whole foods that aren't preserved, but which are cleaned in a very correct way, that doesn't use preservatives or doesn't use chemicals, but allows us to remove any bacteria that's there. Sometimes bacteria is good for us. Sometimes there's a good bacteria in yogurt, for instance. But also we have to make sure we understand which bacteria aren't good for us, and what is created through some of these different cleaning processes that use chemicals, or what kills off certain bacteria that are good for us but leaves bacteria that aren't good for us, for instance. So really remove stress for a start off. Remove the use of pre-prepared foods. Start to create your own foods as well, and by taking basic raw foods and going back to cooking properly, or eating raw food. Eating raw, for instance, raw vegetables is superb. We eat fruit raw, generally, don't we? So raw vegetables, raw fruits. Paying attention to the fact that some of the coverings on fruits and vegetables are good for us as well. And also moving away from doing too much work, getting regular sleep and regular exercise as well. So there's a whole bunch of different things there. But the big thing is go back to moving away from pre-prepared and preserved foods. That's the big one. Okay. So that answers that question, I feel, and allows us to go to the last part of the Satsanga, which is to do with, let's have a look, helping us make the right decisions in life. Okay, so this is really using your intuition, using your ability to understand and log into self. Okay, so let's close our eyes, if we're sitting, if you can find a straight backed chair, that's perfect. We sit with your feet flat on the ground, back straight, spine straight, neck straight, eyes closed, palms uppermost on your upper thighs, closed eye vision focused on the location of the third eye. Okay, which is not the same as the third eye chakra or spiritual or sixth chakra. It's in the same location, but it's not the same as. So that's in between the two eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. And I want you to put yourself in a position where you have three choices in front of you. Okay. One choice being the correct choice, one choice being nearly correct, but slightly desirable, and one choice being very desirable but incorrect. So the middle choice, the second choice, is sort of a bit towards the correct choice, but also has aspects of the desirable but incorrect, so to speak. And just see these choices in front of you. There's three choices in front of you. They don't need to be in that order. But whatever choices you've put down, whether it's buying something or experiencing something or saying something or doing something in a certain way, just put yourself in the position where you don't know any precognition or pre-understanding of the correct way. You just have these three choices: the correct way, the desirable wrong way, and the way that's in the middle. And just feel the lure towards doing the desirable way. We use desire to achieve things. Desire, intention, thought, action, and the product of the action, okay, is the usual equation, if you want to call it that, from a linear perspective. But desire can also be like a lure. It can be the persuasive route, the addictive route. The route that feeds the ego. The route that feeds the material desire to have more. The route that gives you status. It could be even saying something to people. I'm better than you, by illustrating something that you've done or achieved or have that is better than somebody else has just illustrated, achieved or done. In using that example, let's just say that somebody has said something and you can relate to it. Let's just say they've experienced flying on a brand new airplane. Let's say it's this Airbus 380 with the two decks, two levels. And they've been in the premium economy class and they're really excited about going in the premium economy class. and how much room they've got, and how good the service was, and how silent the plane was, and how it absorbed turbulence, and how wonderful the experience was. The incorrect route would be to say, oh, I've been on one of those, and I've been business class or first class, and it was this, that and the other, and we were going on an expensive holiday, for instance. And so therefore your response has been egotistical. The middle of the road route would be to say, yes, I've been on one of those, and it was a most enjoyable experience as well. This is also ego. It's not quite as big egotistically as the first response, the desired response, so to speak, that is incorrect, but it's showing equality with the individual. I'm as good as you. The best response will be to simply acknowledge that they've experienced it by saying, oh, how wonderful, and ask them a bit more detail, what they've experienced, how they experienced it, what they did, what films they did. Letting them share what they've experienced. Having experienced the best solution, the in-between solution where you try to become equal with the individual, and the desired solution that's egotistical where you're trying to be better than the individual who you're communicating with, feel the energy associated with them. Feel how the best way, you know the best way. You feel it in your heart of hearts. You feel it in your intuition. But feel how there's a desire there, a strong desire that overrules, almost overrules, and will do, would you let it, your need to work with the best solution, and pulls you into the I'm better than you. Yes, I've been business class on those planes. I've been to an expensive holiday location. Almost equal in that pull, but not quite, is the need to corroborate, to collude, to give the middle response of, yes, I've been on one of those as well, putting the equality there, taking the energy out of the feeling of, I'm sharing something that I've experienced that I feel is special, and I'm really pleased to have experienced it. Feel the energy associated with going the wrong way that is alluring and addictive. Colluding. And simply acknowledging the person has had a good experience and letting them take all the credit for that experience. Feel the different energies associated with those three different routes. This could be the same thing in buying something. Do you need it? Is it useful? Or are you just storing or hoarding something? Or is what you're buying supporting your ego? It's nice to have the odd toy, so to speak, but only if the toy doesn't govern you, doesn't create an ego. If you enjoy using it and that's it, and it doesn't have any control over you, that's fine. If you enjoy using it and it controls you, and it's something that you use as a vehicle for ego, that's something else. Feel the energies over those basic choices interacting with somebody. The way that you know is the right way to answer. The way that you know is collusion. The way that you know is being better. Better than the person who you're interacting with, the ego side. And then give yourself time to stop and detach from either the collusion response or the desired egotistical I'm better than you response, and simply acknowledge that person has experienced something in which is in their minds wonderful. Even if it's not the same as your experience. It may even be that there's you having a discussion and you know something that the other person doesn't know, and therefore you may be right. The desired aspect is to fight and fight until you're right. The collusion is to say yes, but. The correct response would be to offer the potentially correct response, but if they don't accept it, let them go. Let them go with the way they want to go, with the information they want to have as their way of feeding their own reality. Just feel how each of these different directions feels. This is your overall sentience, your clairsentience. Not just intuition, which is general knowingness, but clairsentience. Feel the result of the action. Giving yourself time to feel the result of the action makes you ultimately choose the correct response. And so use this method every time you have a need to make a choice. Be the one that makes the right choice, not the one that makes the collusive choice or the desirable or egotistical choice. Other parts of you will do that anyway, because we all have, when we have a choice to make, we create little parts of ourselves move off into different event spaces and different event streams associated with those differences in response. But be the one, be the events in the event space and the event stream that made the correct decision. Don't attribute ego to it. I'm always making the right decisions. That's ego as well. Just allow yourself to make the most economical, efficient and correct response that allows you to navigate through this incarnation in a karma-free way. Because the collusion and the desire is a thought and a behaviour associated with being in the physical. So detach from it and navigate through your incarnation in a seamless way. Okay, so having experienced the energies associated with these choices, slowly remember them, log them away somewhere, write them down if you need to, how you felt, what was going through your mind, the temptations associated with going the desired egotistical route, or the need to collude. Or simply being neutral and letting them get on with it and letting them experience and espouse what they've experienced. Okay, so slowly come back into the room once you've made a note of all these things in your mind, and open your eyes. If you want to, you can write these experiences down so you can refer to them later. Okay, well, that's the end of this Satsanga on the 24th of November 2018. And just to reiterate what Satsanga means, well, Sangha is like meeting. Okay, it's a Hindu word, and so is Sat. And Sat is a way of saying God or God consciousness. And so Satsanga means we're in God consciousness together. So World Satsanga means that we're all on the world, in the world, in God consciousness together. So I hope that helps you understand the word Satsanga. I'm sure there's a deeper Hindu meaning associated with it as well, but that's my loose understanding. Thank you everybody for listening in. Thank you all for wanting to understand a bit more of the greater reality, and thank you for listening to and reading the transcription, which US will do, and thank you for Kevin for putting it on his YouTube channel later and allowing a different medium of dissemination of the information as well. Thank you everybody, and blessings to you all, God's love to you all, and I look forward to presenting December's Satsanga to you in a month's time.
Did you see the aliens in Crete?